Hi, I'm Siu Kyung. We're going to gather here today for the breakup sessions to talk about how to create an evolving experience for the family segments. I think later, I'm going to give you a macro picture. Then later the panelists will come in to give you specific examples of things they have done, I think which is supplements on the macro picture that we have been showing you. I want to introduce myself a little bit. I'm a public servant all my life, so I'm extremely boring. I'm an administrator. But I think the important thing here is that I've gone through quite a bit of a portfolio in STB, I think almost 10 years now. Okay, I started off doing international relations for STB. Then I handled quite a number of big events like the ATF, APEC organization. Then I was in North Asia, in charge of Japan and Korea markets, which is currently handled by Marcus. He's one of the panelist members. When I came back to STB in 2013, I think some of you remember I handled student travel, I handled medical travel. So that is the reason why I'm doing this, because when I handled student travel, we found out that a lot of the students or the kids travel with the parents. So we begin to see that Singapore is gaining momentum as a family destination. Then now currently I'm in charge of trade engagement and market access. Trade engagement is a big word, but I can tell you specifically my team handles all the FAMs, the media FAM, your trade FAMs. We manage all your participation in in-market roadshows, the networking sessions, and trade show participation. And then we also assist all our regional officers in tactical trade activity activations. So the reason why my team exists is that sometimes it's difficult for you guys to go individually to all the regional offices. So my site becomes your one-stop shop if you need to roll out something to all the markets. So it's still new, so you may find that we are not fully there yet. But please, now that you understand, make use of my team. My team consists of officers who are in charge of different markets. So if you have been to the different markets with them, you know who are your desk officers, so-called. So you can work with that person directly to work in the market. Let's say, for example, those of you have been to India recently, the Satay show, Gavin was the officer in charge of India, so you probably interface with the guy. So anything related to India, you can either go direct to the India regional offices, or in Singapore, you go through my team, the person Gavin. So it makes it easier for you guys in a way. Okay? And market access basically look at visa issues and also air connectivity. Okay? So maybe before we go to the proper presentation, I want to show you why are we looking at the family segment, the context. I think, like John said, family is nothing new to us. We know that Singapore has a right to win for family segments. So about 1.5 years ago, STB decided that you must look at the potential of the segment. How far can we go in terms of putting resources into the segment, and also at the same time to look at some of the qualitative insights so that we can understand the segment better and market to them. And later I'll share with you some of the findings we have. But because of the findings, so quite a number of our regional officers are now dedicated some resources in their work plan to specifically target the family segment. I think you'll know that China, India, Indonesia, all these have quite a lot of resources targeting family. And for the purpose of a family definition, I think for common understanding, STB defines family segment as adults traveling with children under the age of 12 and below. There's a reason why 12 is the cutoff age, because kids, when they are young, parents travel itinerary centered around the kids. So all the things is for the kids. If the kids are older, they tend to follow the parents, the adults' itinerary. So that's why we thought that 12 is the cutoff age where you need special requirement for the kids. The contents, I will not go through this. Okay, the potential of the family segment. We need to first establish whether there's enough addressable market for us to even put in resources for this one. Okay, we have quite a number of studies to show you. First of all is that based on the studies, we know that Asia drove the global tourism growth in 2016. Okay, so everyone knows that Asia is the one that's driving the global tourism growth. And on top of that, the GDP growth projected for the future to 2030, most of the growth comes from our regional Asian countries, which means that the economic growth and the wealth of Asia will continue to grow. And this study shows something quite interesting. Within the APEC countries where there's a strong GDP growth, the emerging markets are growing faster than the developed markets, which means that your countries like China, India, Indonesia, Thailand are actually going faster than, let's say, Korea or Japan. So the emerging markets in Asia Pacific are growing faster than the developed countries. And of course, the last point, the level of the middle income rise. You can see that for Asia Pacific, the percentage is actually quite significant. Currently, it's about 46%. Over time, it's going to be more than 50% that is middle income. So now we have actually established that within Asia Pacific, Asia is a region that has strong growth, and we need a strong growth that enough middle income, they are wealthy enough to travel. So that's the first step. Then second step, you look at family segment, you look at the kids. Based on a recent study, currently, those aged between 10 and 24, we have 1.8 billion of them in our region. And you look at specifically where they are, India, China, and Indonesia. Of course, the first question you look at this is that most of them can't afford to travel because there's a large rural population. But if you take a conservative view of, let's say, 15 to 20% of those who are in the top income tier, it's still a very, very large addressable population they can work with. So that means that the middle income has the money to travel. There are enough kids around for us to address to their travel needs. So the next thing we need to establish is, would they want to travel? So whether there's a strong desire to travel. There's quite a number of studies in the world, especially from the US, to show that many families view travel as a way for the kids to develop a holistic view of the world. So it's really a very well-rounded way of kids' development in their life. So they always find it is valuable to a kid's education, and also the enriching vacation is one of the biggest trends in the world, especially for many of the developed countries. But Asian countries are catching up. If you have spoken to some of the parents in Korea or Japan, you know the need for the kids to do well is so strong, they'll put in all sorts of resources to make sure the kids have a enriching development. Sometimes, I was so surprised that some of the kids I know, right, at the age of 3, the parents are already sending them to enrichment classes. I think some guilty faces here. So imagine the amount of money and resources they put into the kids. Oh, sorry, I forgot to click. Yeah. So these are the things. And the differentiating factor now is really about enriching vacations for the kids. Because parents don't want to just bring the kids down there and then not learn anything. Because the most ideal one is a kid come back and they develop something new, a knowledge or experience or some sort of skills. So from STB's own market insight studies, you will notice that consumers are telling us for Korea, family travel is really to expose their kids. And for Korean family, they like to come to Singapore because Singapore is an English-speaking destination. So they want the kids to expose to an English environment. So that is one of our strong appeal to the Korean families. Then for Hong Kong, okay, one of the strong things is to bond with the family and also to broaden the horizon of the kids. Then for Vietnam, they're looking at new and interesting experiences which cannot be found back in their own home. So again, it's about exposing the kids to new cultures. So for Philippines, again, it's experiences which help them to create shared memories. So again, it's about bonding, so it's family. And of course, the last one, Australia, the need to discover new experiences and cultures and bond with their family. So the several themes keep coming out. It's about family bonding with the kids and also about differentiated experiences. All these are from the STB's insight reports, which you can find on the corporate website. So what is the current landscape? So we know that now in Asia Pacific, we have enough middle income people to have the money to travel. We know there are many youth population here, and they have a strong desire to travel because the parents want the kids to have a more holistic development. So what are the statistics telling us? I'm going to show you 2 slides on Euromonitor. The first one, this is the growth of the family segment from 2012 to 2015. If you look at the source market, they all show double-digit growth in terms of family segment in all the markets listed here. And these are double-digit growth from 2012 to 2015. The next slide I'm going to show you is projected forward. So this one is from 2015 to 2020. You can see that the family segment continues to grow, but of course it's at a slower rate. look at the potential. The segment continues to grow till 2020. So there's a huge potential that the family segment is going to be bigger for us. And then from our own internal STB data, the OVS data, we also have 3 insights for you. The first one is that the total family IVA, international visitor arrivals, for STB's top 14 markets recorded double-digit growth for 2012 versus 2015. So it's a double-digit growth. It's quite a significant increase. And secondly, the growth in the family IVA led by markets in Asia, predominantly China, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, and South Korea. I think the other important insight here is that for China, the proportion of family IVA versus the total leisure IVA from China also doubled from 2012 to 2015. That means of all the visitors coming for leisure purpose from China, family segment has doubled in terms of proportion. So it's quite significant for our key source market in China. Then the last one, I think it's important for all of us. The family IVA tend to have higher PCE compared to a leisure segment. Because once you have kids, honestly, if you want the kids to enjoy, you want the kids to learn, you will spend. So the segment PCE is higher than a leisure PCE. Then what motivates and what are the needs of the family segment? Just now earlier mentioned, broaden horizon. That is something very funny because when you talk to the parents, right, they'll give you different definition about what's broadening the horizon. Some parents, when I spoke to them in China, they said that, oh, the moment I bring my kids to Singapore, because Singapore is so strong in terms of education, the kids will immediately embrace themselves into this environment they want to learn. So something can be something as big as that, to enrolling them into a particular class where they can learn about different cultures, how to interact with the different nationalities. So it is as broad as something that's conceptual, all the way to specific skills and knowledge that they can attain. So new and interesting experiences, including cultures, especially those that they cannot get back home. Because you notice most of our key source markets are monoculture. So in Singapore, they get a mix of different cultures, which I find in a way is quite exciting. Again, it has to be immersive, interactive, because they are kids. Kids need to be enticed to enjoy the program. So it needs to be interactive and immersive. Bonding, this one again is something that comes out very strongly, because a lot of parents feel that back home, in their own home, they work so hard, they have no time to spend with the kids. So when they come out holiday with the family, they want to spend as much time with the kids as possible. So bonding becomes very important motivator. At the same time, this one again is next one is a bit two-way you can look at it. One is that because they want to bond, so parents want to participate in the same activity as the kids, which means when you do your program tailoring, you have to cater to the fact that there are some for kids, some for adults. But there are also some, these came from the Korean families. They also say that for this type of thing, right, the parents will not be able to join because remember, Korean parents want the kids to learn in English. And the parents usually are not very good at English, so they cannot participate. So again, this one you may need to do a bit of tailoring depending on the market. So ease for the kids. Because once you have kids, moving around becomes a bit more difficult. So how do you make it as convenient as possible for the kids to move around from point to point? Even within the same facilities, the nearby toilet where the kids can go, easy places where the kids can have good food. So these are things that you need to think about in terms of the ease of moving around. Of course, being parents, hygiene factors are most important. You must make sure the place is safe in terms of personal safety, food safety, environmental safety. Yeah. So this becomes actually one of the strongest reasons for choosing destination for parents, especially when your kids are 12 years and below, hygiene factors. So after looking at all these key considerations, we also talked to the parents with young kids who came to Singapore to find out what they did in Singapore and what they like and dislike about Singapore. So you'll see that this is a very busy slide. I'll bring you through it. If you look at sightseeing and entertainment, the first one on the extreme left, you'll notice that they like Singapore because they find value for money. Because the programs are of quality and you pay for the quality, you actually learn something out of it. They also think that there are a lot of interactive displays, especially in the museums. But they dislike long queues because imagine you have a young child, she had to queue for like 1 hour to get into the site. Is you can just imagine, yeah. So some places that have solution is to have a family queue. So this could be one possibility. Price, because when you have kids, the total package together, the price is much higher. So price is always the issue. I think it's not only to family but to all our visitors. Then also they want more behind the scene experiences. I think this point we have been telling a lot of our providers to provide behind the scene experiences because kids want interactive, immersive, and learning opportunities. Then accessibility, of course, we are very good because we are easy to get around, a lot of public transport available, and we also have a lot of places for Wi-Fi connectivity. Dining, local food, because they want to experience different culture, so local food is key. And they like the fact that we have food court, because food court is really easy dining for the whole family. You can choose what you want to eat. And which comes down to the third point, which is a bit strange, the jumbo seafood. Although they are telling us they tend to go to the jumbo seafood, because I used to handle student travel groups, OSTs, when they're all students, some of the travel agents always tell me that when you bring them to dinings like seafood and all that, the kids will not even want to touch the crab because they are used to the parents opening out all the things for them. So they will prefer to go to a fast food if given the option. But I guess if you go with the family, the parents will help them with the food. So that's why seafood appears here. But when you talk to many of the OST travel agents, they are likely to go for somewhere that's easy to eat for the kids. Then you look at, in terms of shopping, souvenirs, of course, parents still want to take the opportunity to buy branded stuff. And also, they want to buy local food stuff to bring back. Souvenirs such as Bengawan Solo is very popular. And also, they like things like brand them that have been to Singapore, the souvenirs and t-shirts about Singapore. Bear in mind that these are just straw polls, so take it a pinch of salt. And of course, lastly, the reason it comes for medical and also visit friends and relatives. So this is just a straw poll of what the family with kids do in Singapore and the perception of where our strengths and weaknesses. Competitive analysis, this one is, I think, is quite intuitive. Where our competition? Currently, because kids are young, so they cannot bring them too far, so it will likely be Hong Kong, Macau. If you look at the source markets of China, India, and Indonesia, it's Hong Kong, Macau, Thailand. Oh, sorry. Hong Kong, Macau, Thailand, Malaysia, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, and Australia. So these are our competitors in terms of family segment. But there's another point that I want to make here, which is equally important, is let's say for China market. Because when we did studies with Ipsos in China, we found out that parents who want to bring their young kids out, the first destination they tend to want to go somewhere nearer, which is logical, and not too different from China, because otherwise the kid cannot adapt. So the first destinations that come to their mind is always Hong Kong, Macau, then Taiwan or Singapore. But because Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau is too similar to China, so Singapore naturally became the choice. That means we really have the right to win for the first-time travelers for young kids. So this is a segment that we are stronger right to win. So after that, then they want to progress to further, which is Japan, Korea, or Europe, or America. I also want to share with you the competitive analysis in terms of 5 factors, in terms of product offerings, then about software programming, then amenities, hygiene factors, market positioning, as well as the service orientation. So we look at our competitors based on these 5 factors. In terms of hardware, I'm happy to say that we are actually quite good in terms of offering of products. We have a diverse range of internationally branded products. We also some that's unique or smaller local products. And we are particularly strong in nature-based activities and products. I think this has been singled out by many of our providers and travel agents who said this is the one that's really sellable, which also means that we probably need to ramp up some of the other activities. We have also adventure-based, and some that's really catered for kids like Kizania. Bearing in mind this is not the exhaust list, I'll just give you an example. And of course, we have our museum, which has very, very good children's program. And some of the culture precincts also offer very good experiences for the family. So these are the product offering. But if you go to the software side, the programming, we tend to lag behind because they always cite that in Japan and Korea, they have a lot better immersive experience in terms of programming and culture. So one example, the website is the Japan's Edo Wonderland, where the kids can dress up like ninja, Japanese, the kimono, and run the small Edo town, pretending they are living there. So this type of really immersive experience is extremely popular with family and kids. And also Korea, the hanbok consumer costume to experience, they let them, the kids dress up, yeah, and pretend to be a Korean family. In terms of us, how we compare, while we have a lot of back of house programs from attractions and museums, in a way they are not well publicized, that's one. And then our precincts, they may have program, but the program are not necessarily tailored for kids. The one program for all. So kids, sometimes you need something special because short attention span. So this is something that we may want to pay some attention to. In terms of amenities, I think, again, we need to cite that some countries can do better than us, Japan and Korea. They have a lot of amenities for parents with young kids, and they are well publicized, and they are also usually complimentary for the parents. I remember one more when I was based in Japan, one more, when you go inside, they have a brochure for adults and a brochure for family kids. So the one with family kids really catered all the listing where the kids can feel comfortable, the amenities the parents can bring the kids to. So it's really catered for family for the mall. While Singapore, many of our places have a nursing room, kids play area, they are usually not easy to find. And even for the stroller, many of them, you charge a fee for it. Then market positioning, I think in terms of Australia, they did very well. They have a special portal for the family. Yeah. And then they also have a lot of post and pre-arrival activities for the kids, the touch points for the kids to enjoy. For STB, recently I mentioned that we are ramping up the focus marketing for family. So now our Singapore Insider, we always have a dedicated 2-page on Singapore family activities for your target segment. And we also have a lot more editorials on family fun. And also our regional offices, they are really ramping up many of their activities to target the family. Later you hear from our panelists, they'll give you some specific examples. And of course, this morning you heard our announcement, the Disney content is going to be fabulous for families and kids. Although Star Wars, I don't know, below 12, maybe you'll find it interesting with the robots. In terms of service orientation, this is something you can look at it from the point of view of what kind of added-on services you want to give to the kids. So later again, one of our panelist members will talk about how they're going to rejuvenate their current properties to make it even more service-oriented towards the family, which is good. But again, when you look at it, the ones that are doing very well are really Hong Kong and Japan and Korea. In Korea, mothers rule supreme. Everything is about the mother and the kid. So you go down there, you notice that even in the big malls, you go inside the kids' room with the mother is really well stocked inside. So these are some of the things that we may not have been doing so well. So in summary, there's a rise of the middle income travelers in Asia Pacific. And then there's also an increase in the youth population in our immediate region, especially our key source market like India, China, and Southeast Asia. And of course, parents are willing to spend more money on kids, and overseas travel is really seen as an enriching experience. So there is an ability to travel, and there's also a desire to travel for the family segment. So we also look at statistics that the family segment will continue to grow till 2020. And I think also important that within STB, our own data showing that the family segments across 40 markets have grown at a double-digit CAGR from 2012 to 2015. And happy news for all of us, they spend more. In terms of right to win, I think this one is a no-brainer. We have extremely strong hygiene factors. So this is one of the reasons why families always cite that Singapore is a good destination for the kids. I think one of the travel agents told me that in order to bring a school trips of young kids to Singapore, one very important thing they must always do is thermometers to measure the kids' temperature. And they have to do twice daily reporting to the parents back home to make sure that the parents know that the kids are safe. So that's why hygiene factor is key for family with young kids. And then, of course, international brand name family entertainments to get their attention to draw them here. And then, of course, then after that is a variety of different attractions, including the best of class. Ease of getting around. Especially later, I think Marcus going to talk about the different types of family components that in the future is evolving. So nowadays, there are also a lot of families traveling with their own parents and their own kids. So imagine a Santai, 3-generation travel. So ease of getting around becomes even more important. We also have quite a good range of diverse products to offer to the family. But we can do more for programming activities to target the kids. And of course, amenity services, I think we are available, not too well publicized, and unfortunately it's all chargeable. And we have a lot of unique, authentic experiences that's centered on Singapore and Singapore cultures. And I think this is what the consumers are telling us, that they want differentiated products and experiences in Singapore. And this is the part I think we also need to ramp up a little bit more. And later, the panelists will share with you more specific examples of what they are doing for their own properties. So if not, thank you very much.
So I'm John Consencio. I'm the Executive Director for IRM, P&O, and EM, okay? International Relations, Market Planning, Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand, and recently I was given the portfolio for the emerging markets also. Right? I was asked to moderate this session because there's some interesting things that Australia has done in terms of how we portray the destination Singapore, specifically for the family segment. Right? But that's much later. Just to give you briefly, we've done part 1, so that's the input session that Siew Keong has given you just now. And I think the major takeaway here from this session is, I think Singapore has the right to win for the family segment. Everybody here agrees, right? Very, very strong, right? Our family segment right to win. So nothing else to do because we are very strong. Our panelists will tell you that we are very strong in our family segment. They will prove to you each of their organizations is very, very strong in the family segment and how it caters to the family segment. But there are gaps, right? And that's what we're going to discuss a bit more later in the afternoon. And then after we'll have a quick question and answer. I know you're all very enthusiastic to ask a lot of questions. Don't worry, I won't go and pick on you like I did just now. Right? You all voluntarily ask the questions because you have a very, very esteemed panelists here to ask all the questions. And then we will end off, don't run away after the Q&A. I know eve of public holiday, right? Don't run away yet, because then 3 markets will come and share with you very, very briefly on Myanmar and Japan, on how we are portraying the destination Singapore as a family destination in our markets over there. And then we end off with a very, very exciting Australia, right? My colleague Sharon over there will share with you some of the very interesting things that we've done in Australia for the family segment. Right? Okay, so without further ado, I should invite the panelists up now, finally, okay? I will invite you by name, then you tell everybody who you are, okay? Right? Easy. I didn't ask for their CV, so I don't know what they really do. Okay, Reto, come up. Shangri-La Hotel. Then we have Isabel from Wildlife Reserves. Suen, National Gallery. And Marcus, North Asia STB. I forgot something again. Okay, so you saw the presentation that Siew Keong did, right? A lot of the attractions that we have. But there's one other area that's very interesting, which I think is worth sharing with you all, and what you've heard this morning. So I have my great friend here, Carrie Quick. Come, Carrie. By the way, I've been in STB for 14 years. Carrie has been in STB
for longer than 14 years.
Okay, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Carrie, and I know there are many familiar faces in the room as well, known and seen you all over the years. I just wanted to complement some of the information that Siew Keong has already shared, which was more from a attractions and hardware perspective. I think I lead a team that looks after arts and entertainment, and I think this morning we already shared one of the quite exciting new things that we are looking at from a software development perspective. Family events really, would be an area that anchors and is a cornerstone of our event strategy. And just to share with you all, we work with both, overseas IP owners to bring in branded entertainment concepts to Singapore, but equally we also look at how to grow and develop our own homegrown events as well, which are also very unique to us. So it's a balance that we try to strike, and we're quite happy that over the years we have seen a real growth in the type of pipeline, and our calendar is actually very rich when it comes to family segments. So we of course welcome on an annual basis a lot of some of these big top shows. For example, Cirque du Soleil this year, there's Kuza. Previously there was Totem, which did very well. We also had something that was quite unique in Asia 2 years ago, Cavalia, which was the horse show, if some of you recall. All these did very well with the families. And when we talk to the events, the owners, they continue to want to bring these events to Singapore. And of course, when they do come, these are quite long-running, relatively long-running for Singapore. In the context of Singapore, they stay for at least 2 months, 2.5 months. So there is quite a bit of spillover, and there are things that they can do as partnerships, with the trade. Other than that, we also see the growth of festivals. Of course, we have, the music type festivals, which are more, targeted at the early careers of millennials. But over time, we also see a lot of events, be it Christmas Wonderland at Gardens by the Bay, and Chui Ling here can tell you more about it as well as neon lights. We have our night festivals, which are growing very strongly. All these have traction for the family segment. With the announcement of the Disney partnership today, I think this brings us to a different level as well. And I think the pitch here to you here, who may be from different parts of the trade, would be that we would be very open to listening to any kind of ideas and concept proposals that you may have. You can come to STB first, because I think at the broader level, the access to the Disney IP over the next 3 years is a great opportunity. But we do want to see how our trade partners, whether or not you are an attractions, from the attractions, or you're an event organizer, you may have some ideas that are generated to actually build up this pipeline together with STB and Disney. So I don't want to keep the panel any longer, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Right. Marcus, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure many of you who are seated here today may not find me unfamiliar. I'm Marcus Tan, Regional Director for North Asia. I look after Japan as well as Korea, not North Korea. Okay. Before
North Asia.
North Asia, yeah. Right. And
we are opening the office in Surabaya, not North Korea yet.
North Korea, not yet. And prior to my posting in North Asia, I was doing BT Minds work, whereby we launched the Minds 2020 Blueprint. And just before that, I was stationed in Macau, in Hong Kong and Guangzhou for a period of 4 years. So thanks to you guys for supporting all our programs in market.
Reto, next.
Thank you. My name is Reto. I'm the General Manager and Vice President at Shangri-La Hotel Singapore. I'm looking after that particular hotel that is very close to my heart, as well as 3 hotel chains, 2 in Singapore and 1 in Johor. I'm in Singapore since 3 years, but with the company for 22 years. And those of you who have been in touch with Shangri-La, this concept of family, the culture of family is something that is very close to our heart, internally as well as externally. So this topic of family resonates very, very well with everybody.
Great. Isabel?
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for Wildlife Reserve Singapore. Wildlife Reserve Singapore is the operator of the 4 attractions, wildlife attractions. I'm sure you know Singapore Zoo, Night Safari, River Safari, and over the other side, in the west, there's Jurong Bird Park. So I'm responsible for sales, marketing, and corporate communications. So my division basically is responsible for bringing footfalls to get people to come to our parks. And I think we know, and most of you know that we are really one of the key attractions for family over the decades. But the challenge is really how you continue to refresh and rejuvenate to become relevant. Now, increasingly, there's going to be another phase that's coming up. Most of you would have heard of the new Mandai development, where we're moving Bird Park over to Mandai. So the whole Mandai precinct is really going to be a hub for wildlife nature attraction. And I think that really is going to be a magnet, we hope, for families when they come into Singapore, including the local families. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Suen Tan from the National Gallery Singapore. Prior to that, I've spent 20 years as a museum professional in total. My previous job was in Singapore Art Museum, and the National Gallery itself, it's a 10-year project, so we were already planning for it since 2006. At the National Gallery, I oversee programs, events, as well as the hospitality. And a core function of my role is really to look at how do we create a lifelong museum-going habit and audience in that regard. So one of my sort of a baby that I kind of established when I transferred to the National Gallery is the Keppel Center for Art Education. I'm not sure if many of you have had a chance to visit it, but for museums, traditionally, a lot of museums around the world don't really have family-friendly activities. And I guess the impression of young children going to museums is that, please don't touch the artwork in case you harm them. So that's something that we wanted to change. In fact, we wanted to create a fully immersive destination and facility for young children and families to spend that time, to have tactile experiences, and to really, foster museum-going habit from a young age.
Right. Thank you. See, they can do a better job introducing themselves than if I read their CV out, right? Okay, so let's start now with your response. Very quick responses. I'm going to ask two of you, Marcus and Isabel. Definition of the family segment, right? Parents with children 12 years and below. Your response, Isabel?
That's the segment that we've been focusing on for as far as I can remember. But I think increasingly we know, and everyone's talking about, aging society and all that. So we have actually also broadened to include the grandparents. So of course the core would be the family with the kids 12 years and below, but we cannot ignore the grandparents, particularly because Singapore itself is aging, and kids are becoming lesser. The Singaporeans are not procreating as well as our animals. Except for the pandas. Yeah. The pandas, we're still waiting, okay? With bated breath. But I will not hold my breath. I may not survive. Okay, and we have, a big group of our segments are also coming from overseas. So one of the biggest group is from India. And I think those who know India, they typically come in 3 generations. They come, it's an entourage, of the kids, the family, and the grandparents. So we see this, and we get feedback. For instance, with the air parks, it's fine. Like for instance, River Safari, there's no tram, no mode of transport. So if you tell the parents, you tell the families with the grandparents, and they'll ask, you mean we have to walk right through? So then that is a bit of a deterrent. So these are the considerations we increasingly have to take, when we rejuvenate and refresh the parks. And particularly more so now that we're looking at the new Mandai, the new parks, is the infrastructure that we have to put in, because once you've set it, it's not going to be easy to go and redo and dig out everything and make it friendly and all. So you ask me, family segments, core would be with still kids 12 years and below, but 3G is increasingly going to be quite important for us.
Okay, good. So you're evolving the travel experience, right, to include wider definition of family. Marcus?
Yeah, I guess from a corporate perspective, family definition is father, mother plus children under 12. And rightly so, because I think programs for children under 12 needs to be curated differently from the rest of the adults. If I were to stick on this very precise definition for the Japan market, I'll be losing out quite a fair share of the market size. Everybody knows that Japan is a fast, rapidly increasing, growing market. Today, we have 1 out of 4 Japanese that are above the age of 65 years old, and they have a lot of free time to travel. So I think what the office has done is really to expand our target audience to include families, for example, mothers plus daughters, and a 3-generation travel as well. So later on in my presentation, I'll share with you how we actually went out to market to promote Singapore as a preferred destination for 3-generation travel.
Okay, great. So for Reto and for Suen, right, was there anything in the presentation that struck you as interesting or you didn't expect?
From a hotel's perspective, it was interesting that you mentioned that not only are the numbers growing, but also the spend of their families is higher than the average or is growing. We don't exactly have that observation within our hotels, and not only talking about our hotel. We also see double-digit growth in arrivals, with not quite the same number growth, close to not quite the same numbers growth in terms of room nights. So that means group-wide, and I exclude resorts. We're just really only looking at city hotels. Yeah. We're seeing a shortening of stays. Over the past years, we're also seeing that in our hotels, the spend has actually not grown by as much. And most importantly, the other spend within the hotel is practically stagnant. So that always is a very eye-opening discovery, because you, on one hand, you have a growing demand, and on the other hand, you are not being able to capture and convert these additional guests into active buyers within your own properties. And of course, you figure out it may have something to do with your offering. It may have something to do with how attractive is within your own hotel the services and the product. So definitely a big opportunity.
Yeah, but you will be sharing with us later how Shangri-La has evolved, right, in catering to the family segment.
Parts of it, yes.
Okay, parts of it. Okay, so we'll get back to you in a while. So let's ask Suen now. Anything interesting you saw?
Yeah, I think we talked about coming in 3 generations, but I also note STB's corporate definition is families as parent with children under 12. I think from the museum's perspective, we've noticed that when we had open houses, when we had our Light to Night festival, we saw all 3 generations come together, even for a Latin dance event, which is something that we didn't expect, and they would stay out late because we extended hours till midnight. So if we really were to exclusively focus on children, products for children 12 and below, what is going to happen is that we're going to see a phenomenon which has always been happening within the cultural sector, where parents are really looking for experiences for young children, but they themselves are very disengaged because they think that I'm here and the learning experience is good for my kid, and that's the reason why I come to a museum. However, when the kid grows a little bit older and no longer needs to, gets into a teenager, they may not necessarily visit the museum because they sense the parent is not also genuinely interested in the content. And so then you see a falling out, a dropout rate. So you see this cycling in and out of institutions, and the next time they're probably going to come back is when they become a parent themselves and they bring their kids, and then they drop out again and they come back again as grandparents. So this is actually not a very sustainable audience development model for any cultural institution. And I think maybe that's also the reason to do with the fact that perhaps a demographic categorization is not necessarily the most insightful way to understand our audiences. And then looking at research, you have a lot of museum cultural researchers like John Falk, and he talks about identity motivation. So you have people that come because they're explorers, they really want to satisfy their curiosity. People who come because they want to recharge, they want to get away from different stresses, and there are others who come because they are facilitators, they really want to share their knowledge with others. So depending on what identity motivations are within this family unit, you could have a family, father, mother, grandmother, and child, but all of them could have different identity motivations. And then how do you, as a cultural institution or attraction, customize your offering to make sure you have a diversity of products for this group.
So that's interesting because when we talk about the family segment, we always immediately start focusing on the kids, right? I think Suen has talked about a cycle, and Isabel, you see the same cycle happening in WRS?
Yes, yeah. Typically, I mean, we tried, say at the zoo, for many years, we tried to see how we could get the teens to come. You say, wow, you know, the teens are not coming, the young adults are not coming, this is, you know, a potential opportunity. So we did all sorts of things, right? Aside from just pulling them by the hair to come, you know, they won't come. So I think we've come to realize that it is what it is. So we see this cycle. They come when they're kids. It's almost similar to Suen's. They come when they are kids, you know, below 12. They come with the schools. They come with their parents. Once they grow into teenager, it's like, oh, I've been there so many times, you know. Then they're so distracted with so many things, so many activities, they don't come. And the parents will say, oh, the last time I went to the zoo was when my kid was, you know, how many years old. So then they disappear for a while. And then they'll come back, the kids will come back when they themselves become young parents. Okay, then they say, oh, the zoo is a great place, I had a great time, and it's learning and all that. So then they'll come when they bring the kids. Then when the kids grow up, they also stop, right? So next time they will come when they become grandparents. Then they will bring the grandkids. So there is that cycle that we see as well.
So it's good to see the evolving travel experience, right? The two of these organizations are responding, right? I think there's a corporate definition, 12 years and below for kids plus parents. There's mother and daughter travel now. There's 3-generation travel, and then you're all responding based on your programs as well as your facilities, right? I think you mentioned to me, Isabel, that toilets are very important, right? Grandparents come in and realize that they have to walk back and there's no toilet at the other end.
Correct. So it's like, it literally is for the new development, right? So this is something that when talking about the new Mandai and new parks and all that, and we tell them, you know, this is important. Each toilet has to be within a certain, I can't remember, 100 meters away and not too far, you know, in between. So it is important. All these, and rest areas.
Right.
Yeah, even benches and all that, you know, to rest along the way, you know, something that you may not have thought of. So that's for the parents. But for the kids, it's also no longer, for us, it's exhibits, right? So you think that you pay a lot of attention to make sure that the animals are well exhibited and all that, and that was the way of the past. Not so anymore. You know, families are coming through, you need to do your infrastructure or your design such that there are little things that will engage the kids. For instance, it could be say in River Safari, or you know, it could be just a tank and you're looking at animals, you know, and tanks after tanks, for instance, right? But you imagine, right, if the kids, the attention span is so short, they'll be running right through, and then the parents like, oh, wait, and they'll be running right through. That's all they see, right? So you need things to stop the kids in the tracks. It could be something for them to climb, you know, something for them to crawl through, to look at, you know, different ways. And so it's no longer just about, okay, you know, I make sure I have a good exhibit, and that's that.
Great. So the panelists we met on Monday, we had wine, we drank had a few drinks, and then I told them, each of you, right, prepare 4 to 5 slides to talk about your organization, focus on the family, right? They prepared slides, they prepared videos, and Suen has got 30 over slides, but she assures me that it will be quite fast, okay? Right, so now I'm going to give them airtime, each of them airtime, to tell you about their organization, what they're doing specifically for the family segment. So we start with Reto.
Okay, well, you know, I think as every one of us, I would assume, evolves with your organization in one way or the other, it is critical that we take a good amount of time to think about what are the specific focuses and needs of tomorrow. And we think that if you look at our hotels and their role they can play and where they can be successful, we really look at 4 key pillars. One is we think that MICE will continue to be a strong element of travel. We think that dining is a topic that we really need to keep our eye on and be extremely innovative and creative. We think wellness is a huge huge topic for most organizations that offer services. So we need to get very creative in that area. And we also think that the family business, family market is obviously aligned with and supported with a lot of data, key, big key. So obviously no surprise, I'm not here to talk about mice, I'm talking about our family plans. The challenge there is, for the hoteliers and travel people, is how do you get all of these different needs under one umbrella? Right? I don't think we can today just focus on one thing, but that is really the challenge, because if we want to participate in this growth channel, we have no choice. We have to think about it and make clever decisions. A couple of months ago, we've done an interesting survey. We've called a lot of hotels in Southeast Asia, and it was a mother that was pregnant, with 6 months pregnant, and she was looking for a 3-night staycation with her husband and her 6-year-old son. And the result, I must tell you, they were quite sobering. They were sobering. The caller experiences were not exciting. When the caller said that there is certain intolerances of when it comes to food of his son, then that the person wasn't really able to manage that very well, oftentimes on the phone. The mother was offered, when asked for family packages, the honeymoon package that comes with a bottle of champagne. Also, that didn't go down so well. So if you just think about how well are our people really ready, to talk to a mother, who obviously oftentimes it's the mother, to say and to respond and advise and at ease, hygiene factors, that the hotel will be ready to welcome that family and look after that family extremely well. Obviously a great opportunity for everybody, and there is a lot of space we can catch up. Very, very few hotels, I think Ritz-Carlton, it was mentioned, are generally doing a good job, but very few hotels have children facilities. Very few hotels have very specific kid services. So definitely an opportunity for everybody to think about and participate in this tremendous growth opportunity. Most importantly is to go and ask families, ask the kids, what do you want? What do you really want? What are things you're looking forward to? So we've also gone out and asked quite a few families what they really want, and you will find out, it's nice to hear it from themselves. It's very aligned with some of the things we've heard before.
My name's Joseph Chow, and we're from Australia, Perth.
Marianne from Australia.
Masaki Momokore.
David Sim, Singapore.
Angeline, I'm from Singapore.
Daniel from Beijing, China.
Cindy, I'm coming from Hong Kong.
Yamasaki Kyohei desu. 国籍は日本です.
Gary from Hong Kong.
Christine Mitchell, and I'm from England.
Michael Mitchell, England.
Svetlana Shubala.
Son Pesimisova, and I come from Finland. Hikong Gun, I'm from Australia.
Sherry from Singapore. Time to rest and rejuvenate.
Quality time with family.
Очень хорошо, чисто, красиво, комфортно и внимательно очень. 大家有一个沟通交流的机会。
Spend time as a family, be together. Food, good time.
子供と一緒に、あと家族と一緒に過ごす時間と
Somewhere warm.
bonding time.
Transportation.
The nice beaches.
To be central. あと立地条件がいい。
Simply the ease of moving the family.
交通方便。
Mobility and hygiene.
移動時間が一番大変です。
Long flightです.
We want to spend time as a couple.
还有就是，如果我们行李多，可能就去个地方不太方便。
Making people more aware of allergies.
A proper kids club. activity of
Playroom for the kids.
babysitting or kids garden. Some kind of kids activities. Kids can stay with a club.
Так как мы путешествуем с семьей и с маленькими детьми, нам бы, конечно, хотелось, чтобы в отеле была детская зона Kids Club.
Hokkaido, where we went on a ski vacation.
Just relaxing by the pool?
Probably last night. Went for a bike ride. That was really good. We just saw all these little barbecue places you can eat.
4年啊，然后去各个公园啊，然后
Club Med. It was our third trip there. My daughter has built a lot of confidence from the activities.
Чаем Шангрила. Мы останавливаемся здесь уже более чем 15 лет.
Tokyo Disney.
Been to South Africa.
上次去的是帕劳。
South Africa. We went to see the elephants. We prefer both.
Anywhere.
City vacation.
我两个都挺喜欢。
Both.
The city.
Mix and match.
Намного комфортнее, когда отель находится в городе.
Both.
Beach.
Beach,海岛.
Hi, my name is Dana Joy, and this is Alexander. Now, what is Kirby, you need a help? Fun things. 我有上学。We have very comfortable beds. Yeah. Swimming in the pool. 我喜欢游泳。You gotta go to the pool? What do you like? What do you need? They're nice, and I like to jump on the bed. Crafts and games. 滑滑梯，还有画画，art, play, jumping on the trampoline.
Thank you. Yeah, it's. I find it very refreshing. It doesn't sound too hard, does it? It doesn't sound too complicated. It just needs something. So we also looked at hotels, small hotels, non-branded, branded hotels, who did something. So there was this very young general manager who probably mostly did it himself over the weekend, and he took some of his suites that were not selling very well. He had a very low paid occupancy, and he did a little bit homemade sort of transformation with more color and some animations on and so forth. And within 3 months, he saw a pickup in occupancy, which convinced the owners to inject some money, and he built some specific family-themed suites. We called other hotels who have done similar things, and the results are such that all hotels who have done something like that have achieved a higher paid occupancy for those suite times compared with any other room type they had in the hotel. So pretty much encouraged by some of those sort of data we looked at, we went to work and thought, what are we going to do in the hotel? And I think the aspect of hygiene factor is absolutely critical. So I'll just pick 2 of those simple ones. One is we've come up with a very, very big kids menu. And 60% of that kids menu consists of very healthy food that we work together with a consultant. So families have options, but we know that from surveys we've done, moms will be utterly happy and surprised and that they really can pick great food for their children. Also take very great care and interest in what are all those little utensils and things you need to provide for families, and that it is something that is branded, is of excellent quality, and shows the commitment of the organization that with the small touches we really are knowledgeable about looking after families. So we developed some family rooms where extra bed that can be converted into a tent sleeping area. We developed a suite room type, a family suite room type. Here, very interesting. Does this have a pointer? You see a seating area, and then this is for the parents. This is connecting to this side. And here is a nifty little detail. This is a tunnel. This tunnel connects the parents' room with the children's room. So while this is lockable on the left side, but the kids can scroll through to the other side on Sunday morning. And on the parent side, there are these themed rooms, beds, where two children can very comfortably stay in a safari room or in a treehouse room. We've also looked at some of the facilities in the hotel. Like many hotels, you have a hairdresser, you have a tailor, you have these shops, and we got to ask ourselves what's the relevance of those in a hotel today and tomorrow. So we converted some of those spaces, and we're building, as we've heard, a children's facility. And the concept of play, exploring, and learning, and also trying to find something that children can do with us and they cannot do anywhere else has been a guiding star. So it's a fairly substantial development and shows the commitment towards that segment. So, for example, there is a music room. This is going to be a housekeeping nightmare. That's the muddy room, right? So there, kids and girls will be put into an overall, and then the battle starts. The battle starts. So it's got to be great fun. Party rooms, they are financially very, very interesting propositions. Something that is close to my heart is a baking studio for the kids. Their table height is adjustable, so we can do activities with children in the morning, but we can also do baking activities with adults in the evening, so it's multi-usable. Obviously, attracting the kids market, we are talking about the 12 years old, right? 12 years and below, we really think of infants, toddlers, and kids. So nursing room, there is a kids club cafe, so overall a fairly sizable proposition. Okay, so that's not mine. No, that's phase 2, we do the dinosaurs. So overall, a very attractive proposition. We hope that will help us, particularly during weekends, which has always been our needed period, to be attractive to a different market segment. Happy to take your questions later. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Rachel. So Isabel, your slides are up already, Jurassic, right? When I asked Isabel, does WRS specifically have a drop-down menu when you are looking at their website, right, for kids? And she said no, because WRS, everybody knows, right? It is a family destination, right? So you're going to tell us more about WRS and how you've evolved?
Can I do it sitting down?
Sure.
I need a point. Yeah. Thank you, Rita. I'm really sitting down because I don't have slides, aside from what you just saw. So, so we're talking about family travelers here, family visitors and all. I just want to say that for us, we are an attraction, no doubt, but I will use zoo to represent. So, zoos has been in existence for hundreds of years. It's probably, if you want to say, this is probably one of the first attraction for families, right? So in the old days, where kings and rich people will collect all different types of animals for entertainment, for show, it started then. And zoos, there's a zoo in every city, there's a zoo in every country. So, and it's been there for such a long time now. People in the past, even in Singapore Zoo is 40 plus years old now. In the past, you'd say that when there was no shopping malls, no computers, etc., people will go to the zoo. It was like, hey, Sundays, let's go to the zoo. It was really an outing for the family. Yeah, I think okay, you all look very young to me, so probably don't remember that. But that was how it was. Okay, but that was then. Increasingly over the years, you get all the new attractions coming up. Shopping malls, our spanking shopping malls, and that's where they go to. Another new attraction coming up, and that's another place that they can go to. Zoo is no longer the only choice then. And then things like even computers and internet and all that, right? Just dragging the kids out of the room is already a challenge, right? They're very happy staying in the room the whole day. How do you get them to the zoo. And for the family, it's no longer, in the past you go to a zoo and you look at animals and say, oh, it's so cute, you know. So it's very passive viewing. But you need to move away from that. So we need it to be relevant. We need to refresh and to be relevant. So I just want to maybe highlight the fact that what is key in this day and age is really about interactivity and engagement for family travelers. And the key word is experience. Everyone's talking about experience. Everyone's talking about storytelling. So to ensure that we have interactivity and engagement, to segment it very easily, you first look at the hardware. So for us, for quite a number of years now, we started looking at hardware. As and when we refurbish and redo new exhibits, what we started to do to appeal to to continue to appeal to the family segment is to make sure things like interpretives, we call it interpretives, you may call it signages, the information on the animals and all that. Small things, right? Like making sure it is at knee height level. So, and the information that's on it is bite-sized information. You know, something, it's okay, thanks. Something that they can, the kids can read for themselves. You know how it is in the zoo? They have this in the past, they have this aluminum plug and it has some very scientific name of an animal that you can't even pronounce, right? So the kids will ask and there won't be much interest. So all those was in the past, right? So things have to change. And it's evolved and we made sure that the interpretives are colorful, knee-height level, the kids can look and there's one sentence and it's easy for them to read. So those are examples of infrastructure. And increasingly, you know, the requirements like nursing rooms. I think the zoo was one of the few with the kids WC. So yeah, I remember, right? Sometimes even when we needed to go, you go in there, oops, that's a very tiny one, you know, and then you kind of have to sit in this tiny one. But so we do have regular size and kid size. Yeah. So these are the infrastructure, the hardware. You need to increasingly ensure and think as a family, what is it that they need to build that in. Then there's the software, and the software and having the hardware alone is insufficient. So the software is about programming. Then we need to pump in more keepers talks, animal feeding, behind the scene tours, things that will engage them, right? Because then it's not about just, oh, I just come and see the animals, no. But people, visitors who come in and they actually were engaged in a keeper's talk about the feeding of the animals and all that, leave with a very good experience, like, wow, you know, it's much more interesting, you know, versus them just looking at the animals and trying to read. So the engagement part is the software part. That takes a lot of work, and that takes manpower as well. So it's about the training. Now, we are quite fortunate, I dare say, in that the staff that we employ, because of the nature of our business, are very passionate about what we do. We're not just selling a product, right? It's about animals. Never mind, I think. It's about animals. So when they talk, they really talk with passion. Yeah, and most of us who work in WRS Wildlife Reserve Singapore, we are quite passionate about what we do, and the cause and the reason for our being, because our mission is on wildlife conservation. So there's a huge part of that. But my scope is really to make sure we are profitable so that we can, you know, we are the ones making the money, and then we give it to the other people and they spend it on the animals. But okay, so we have a good balance there. So the software part is something I dare say we do reasonably well, but it takes a lot of work. There's a lot of training, and we're constantly putting a lot of programming. What are we going to do June school holidays? What are we going to do public holidays? What are we going to do, you know, and all this. So that's the software part, and the last part is really the hardware, the hardware. So that part of it is where I think most of our staff has that inherent. Most of them have the inherent service DNA, where they want to make sure that the guests come in and have a good time. I know I do, because I take walks around River Safari, and I'm like, you know, you see a father taking a picture of the mother with the kid, for instance. You know, then we'll start and say, would you like me to take a picture of you and the family? You know, so because you really want them to leave, you know, with a good experience. So that's, I dare say, is inherent in quite a lot of our staff. So that's the three part. So now, interactivity and engagement is key. Now, how have we evolved over the years and what are we looking at? I think we know technology is very important. So technology is an area that we are, yes, focusing on. In fact, we have one big department set up just to look at digital transformation. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to future-proof ourselves. It's not something you think a zoo would need, right? You've got animals, you know, what is the, but that's not true. Okay, so we are investing time, resources, money to look at an experience management platform and going really back into the basics to look at our guest survey, doing focus group and all that. So what we're doing is really this EMP, we call it, Experience Management Platform, is something that we are in the process of setting up in order to be able to track the user journey before they come to the park, when they're in the park, and after they leave. By being able to track the user journey, we will be better able to customize and tailor our offerings to them. So that's a lot of work. That's really inputting a lot of data and trying to see, you know, how we can continue to engage them after they leave. So that's something we're looking. So digital, I think, is very important. Everyone's looking at apps. So I would say that we are doing that too, right? You have apps that will act as an audio guide, you know, apps that will come and tell you, oh, you know, it's showtime, etc., etc. So everyone's looking at that, and we're one of that. So, but our biggest next step will be the experience management platform. And so the last part is like, okay, so over the years, right, what is our biggest challenge? Some of you would say, hey, you know, Singapore Zoo, you're the only zoo in Singapore. Why you worry? You don't have competitors, you know. Our competition is not with another zoo. In Singapore, our competition is for time. I think we know, right? STB keeps saying that the length of stay is 4 days. 4 days. Actually, you realize a lot of a lot of visitors, tourists, when they come into Singapore, they think, I'm coming to Singapore, right? It's just a city, you know, I'm in transit. 3 days, 4 days, more than enough. But when they come in here, it's like, wow, so many things for them to do, you know. You've got all the 4 parks, you've got, I need to go to Orchard Road, I need to eat chicken rice, I need to, you know, go to Chinatown, you know, and then USS and all the different attractions, right? So they're really rushing for time. So time is really our competition. And so for us, it's how we look at trying to make sure they spend some time with us. Okay, so, and after a while, right, because don't forget, we are not a new attraction, at least with the zoo and all that, right? It's 40 over years old. A lot of visitors would have come and said they've been to zoo and all that, right? So let me go to the new one. So how do we continue to get them to come again and again? It's about refreshing, rejuvenating, and that's very important. I'll give you one example. Mandai is coming up, right? We're getting 2 new parks, Rainforest Park, the bird park, the new bird park, and eco accommodation, and an indoor attraction. Now, that's going to be new. Can you imagine in Mandai, when that comes up in Mandai itself, you have the new attraction and what you call the old attraction? That, if that happens, no one will go to the zoo anymore, right? It's a new one, and it's a novelty. So we know that we need to continue to rejuvenate. So we're looking at a master plan. We're looking at a 10-year master plan for the existing parks, such that when the new parks come up, we know for a fact that the zoo, river safari, night safari will be on the same level as the new attraction. So that's the only way to continue, you know, to innovate and refresh and all that. So we are also looking to see within the family unit, right, how can you continue to keep them captivated? Families, they come again and again. It's about animals, you know, what is it? So it's not easy. I think we all share the same challenge, right? It's not easy to think of new things that will keep the people coming again and again. So you've got to think of all sorts of things. So I would like to just very quickly illustrate, for example, in trying to think, what can we do, right? So last December, we did this that Rito had introduced. Oh, that's not this. The Jurassic Park, okay? It's a dino exhibit. Now you say, is dino exhibit new. It's not, right? It's been done in Singapore, in Science Centre and all that. So how do we put a new spin to it? Now the difference is, the dino are not exhibited in an indoor attraction, in indoors, aircon. That's typically the case. So this is outdoor. This is amongst the foliage and all that. So it's hopefully it's a bit more authentic, okay? And now we have our mission and our course, right? Which is thank you. Our mission and our course is about wildlife conservation, which is why we don't sometimes bring in like, hey, Disney character, you know, but what has that got to do with it? So we needed to think, right, with the dinosaurs, how does that relate to us? So we came up with the message, back to save the future. The dinosaurs, everyone know, are extinct, okay? And here we're talking about wildlife conservation because some of the animals will get extinct if we don't do anything about it. So this is like a good match, and there is a very good story behind why we have a dinosaur over and above just, oh, you know, come and see T-Rex and Velociraptor, whatever, right? It's not that. We are able to tie a very strong message with what we are doing here. And that's, the dinosaurs are here to save the future. And of course, you know, you never saw us like this before, is what we're trying to say. You know, it's a play on the word dinosaur. Now, with this particular campaign, we actually fabricated and brought in dinosaurs, animatronics, and put it in the foliage and all that. We did a whole 360 degrees. We went all out, okay? And one of the key things that I just want to leave you with is, we're talking about content, storytelling, right? So there's storytelling a little bit on the message, and there's a storytelling behind this thing. There's the dinosaur exhibit, and I think we also now know that content is key. Video. Everyone is looking at short videos now. So with this one, we also did a few short videos as a lead into the dinosaur launch that we had at the zoo. We did a couple of videos as a teaser just to tease. It's a teaser, right? Maybe we can just play the videos. Wait, made short. Okay, this is fine. So, sorry, can you go back to the slide? I forgot about that slide. This one. So these are just some pictures of how we engage the families. If I want to talk about the dinosaur campaign, I can stand here another half an hour talking about this, but I don't think we have the time. So I just jump very quickly to the whole dinosaur and the teaser we had. Just a little bit of background. We created a dinosaur egg mascot, okay? And there's this guy in the dinosaur egg that's running around, even Orchard Road and all that. We actually advertised for a dino keeper. People know there's a tiger keeper, zookeeper and all that, right? So we actually posted an advertisement for a dino keeper, someone to look after the egg, and eventually the egg will eat. So there was a video on that one, you know, about interviewing with the HR director. Our real HR director was interviewed, or the job description of what a dino keeper, you know, requirements. We had quite a few, and we actually gave them jobs. They actually did come in, so it was for that period. So this is after we've advertised, and we shall play the video. So back at the Singapore Zoo, what happened with the dino egg? Actually, this was a phase 2 video. We joined it together, but it was released later. So it's a bit about storytelling, and creating a reason why the dinos are here. So I just wanted to share that with you. But yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, I am. Okay, so can I have the clicker? Yeah, thank you. Maybe before I start, let me have a show of hands. How many of you actually have been to the National Gallery? Wow, okay, I'm amazed. Thank you so much for the support. So I think, oops, am I going? Yeah, sorry. Okay, so I think, as you all know, we're located in the Civic District, and we occupy 2 historical buildings, the former Supreme Court on the left and the City Hall building. And so we always had this running joke that, prior to the renovation, a lot of people have never stepped into these buildings because you would have to do something really bad or something really good to have been inside these buildings, right? Bad because it was the court and you were tried for really high court cases, and good because perhaps you were a scholar and you were trying to, receive your scholarship in the PSC at that time that were occupying the offices. But as you can see, these 2 buildings collectively have actually stood the test of time. They've witnessed the fall of a colony and the rise of a new nation. And many significant events have actually happened on the steps. Here you see on the left, the Japanese soldiers marching in, supervised by the Allied forces. And on that day of the surrender, the Japanese surrender, you have all the community in Singapore that were really just occupying all facets of the building. And of course, it was also a place where we celebrated, key moments in our nation's history as well as our independence. So I think now, transformed as a new museum, as an art museum, for us, I think being a people's museum is something that we feel it's very important. So I think in the mission statement, I think inspires, engages, and people come out really strongly. And here you see through when we did kind of a poll, when we were first starting and asking ourselves, what is going to make a museum compelling for the visitors' experience, and how are you going to attract families of all, visitors of all walks of life coming in? And of course, when we did a poll, it's no surprise that many people's first impression, especially for young children and families like I shared earlier, they don't feel museums are a place that is welcoming because it's not really, the experience of going to a gallery is highly visual. It's not really geared for a lot of engagement and interaction. And of course, then this is the traditional museums and exhibit displays that one will find in many museums around the world. And to some extent, a lot of museums in Singapore may look like this, though the scene is changing. So we did sort of interviews with many different people. So for parents with young children, really they are looking for family-friendly amenities, age-appropriate activities, but they feel that few places in museums, in cultural institutions, are tot-friendly. So that's something that we took on board when we were designing, the new facility for the National Gallery. Then we also picked up, from lots of surveys that we've come across. This came from, Child of Our Times. It was also a report by ST Life. And, for, children, school-going children between the ages of 7 and 11, they often say that they want to see something new. So novelty is something that they're looking at. Something interactive is also something that they're looking at. But for older students, they are looking for a place to enjoy, to develop their own interests. They are also looking for ways to understand the content, not necessarily in a very in a very academic manner. So with this in mind, I think we started asking ourselves, how can we turn a relatively or typically passive visit experience in an exhibition into an active learning engagement in the museum? What sort of multiple layers of interactions can we introduce at different points of their visit, so as to make the sort of the navigation in the gallery a fairly intuitive experience. So that's when we decided that we needed a special facility for family audiences. So we looked around the world and we went to some museums, such as the Guggenheim, the V&A, the Victoria and Albert Museum in UK, the Tate Museum, and also, closer to home, Australia, Quack Goma, which is the Queensland Art Gallery. And we found that other than Australia, for most museums around the world, when they develop an education center, it's still very much looking like a classroom setting. So we felt that that was not something that was applicable in our local context. And so we were, again, back to the drawing board, having to redevelop the whole idea ourselves. So prior to, as I mentioned, the National Gallery is a 10-year project, so we had the opportunity to test bed some of these activities, staging exhibitions even before the gallery was open. So these were some activities and findings that we learned. We created these activity kiosks to allow people to sketch their own portraits by looking into a mirror. So you don't have to be an artist. Within 2 minutes or 5 minutes, you're able to then trace the lines on your face as you look into your own reflection, and then trace it on the transparency and be able to then transfer that onto the card quite easily. And this were some images that we collected from the families who came. And though these activity stations were designed for children, we found that adults actually had a good time engaging with them. So that already, the learning point for us was that for activities, it was important not to necessarily assume that children below 12 and below have a certain way of learning that cannot otherwise be enjoyed by older audiences. Another aspect that we wanted to test bid, so as you can see from the kind of programs that we test bidding, a museum's responsibility ultimately is to create access to its collection. And we have one of the world's largest collection in Singapore, Southeast Asian art. And so many of our programs are intended to create education learning points around the artworks. So here, I think when we look at an artist like Liu Kang, who has passed on, often young children find it quite difficult to relate because this artist perhaps has no connection with me and my experience, and why would I want to know about him or her? And so what we had done is to actually stage, or recreate the artist studio based on objects retrieved from his home in the early days, and then recreated an interactive corner, which is an artist studio. And that was a very special experience because for many of us, we have actually never really had the chance to step into an artist studio, much less understand and participate in, the live sketching, that could take place there. So we created this corner, which was embedded in the exhibition, and then the kids actually had a good time, and we also collected what they had drawn as documentation. We also then looked at the way that we planned our exhibitions and found that transforming rest areas or introducing rest stops in between an exhibition, was an effective way of engaging audiences because that was an area we could then embed with some interpretive material and also interactive platforms. We also then developed trails that link to different aspects of studies like art, maths, social sciences, and so on. And this provided school children and families different entry points and the opportunity to see an exhibition from multiple angles. So this was also effective in creating repeat visitation to the exhibitions. So as I mentioned, in 2010, just before we underwent renovation, we actually did an open house in the two buildings. That was the first time actually all Singaporeans had the chance to step in, but they have to register for the tours. So I think we initially only planned to open the two buildings for 2 days, but because of within 2 hours, all the tours were subscribed, and there was a lot of demand to go through the prisoners' route, the holding cells, and the whole building history. We actually extended it for a second weekend, and we had about 40,000 people over the 4 days. So that was quite interesting. And then within the actual space of the Keppel Centre, we created a pilot where we wanted to test the future education centre with interactive activities just to see how people would respond to some of the programs that we were envisioning. And I'll be unveiling the Keppel Centre later on. Okay, so we finally opened in November of 2015 with a large outdoor celebration on the Padang with facade projection, and that in a way was a start for us to start to program and extend the program beyond the walls of the gallery, and that's something that we will continue to do in the coming years to program and extend the program into the precinct. So I think many of you, if you've been to the National Gallery, you would have stepped into the Keppel Center. So I think where I was sharing was a journey, how we actually ended up with the exhibits that we have today at the Keppel Center. So there are 4 signature spaces, and each of them have a particular learning outcome that we wanted to introduce to young visitors and families. So the Project Gallery was a space where we could introduce young kids to real-world problems, real-world issues, and we work with artists to create, the imagination around those issues. The Children's Museum is actually where they could role-play. Initially, we had a program where they could role-play as a curator, where they could also move the images that on the magnetic wall and tell their story to the friends. The Art Playscape is a space where they can actually enter full-bodied experience, and it's through active play that they understand narratives and stories, and how the stories are also connected to the key motifs in the artworks in the main galleries. And of course, the art corridor is where kids can actually explore shape and color and understand the forms and composition in the painting. So collectively, we wanted to be very clear that when we designed the center, it was not a drop-off point for parents where you can, kind of like dump the kids there and then, come back later. We wanted an experience where the whole family could participate in. So for instance, in the project gallery here, we had this idea of the flying bus and the boat with the human arms. This was actually developed by the head of SOTA, Visual Arts, Wee Litz, a Singapore artist, and he was very, very interested in this idea of migration and home. So home means different things to each of us, and for children as well, and what does it mean? Is home a physical location or is it a community? So these are questions that he raises through the different activity stations inside this space. And what you probably can't see, but if you come to the Keppel Center previously, if you had visited us, on the underside of the bus, typically you'll see all the different parts in the bus, but here it was actually a map of a 3-room HDB flat. Here you see there. So it actually is a floor plan, and it connects to the sites that you see, with the clothes hanging out of the flat. So these are sites and spaces that people are familiar with, but yet he actually makes it unfamiliar to stretch the imagination. At the Art Playscape, this is another space where we actually we wanted it to be a place to introduce the different motifs that kids will learn to see in the main gallery. So here the main protagonist is the fish that you see at the, the party area. And this fish, in a way, was very much inspired by Chong Su Ping's drying salted fish. I don't know how many of you know this, but we all carry this drying salted fish work with us. Okay, so this work's actually located at the back of your $50 note, and if you turn it around, it's actually there. So that's something that we also share with the kids and with visitors. And we have also developed, storybooks and picture books, that reach out to the children to extend the experience. And also then the trails, there are multiple ways to enter into the treehouse, and through the different trails, there's a kid's entrance, there's also an adult entrance, and depending on which way they enter, they will discover the different stories along the way, and collectively it teaches about diversity, friendship, community, and so on. So there are some learning outcomes that we've had. And this was something that we sort of were very pleasantly surprised. Though the space was designed for young audiences, we actually have here an adult audience actually saying that, this was where she found her favorite spot. So I think it's a space, we feel that that's also the reason why programs are not necessarily having to be catered to 12 and below. We often find that a lot of these activities reach, audiences that are a bit older. So the big idea that we have when we want to introduce technology in a museum is really that it engages all the different senses. So located right across the Art Playscape, we have this interactive gallery which is called Who's in the Woods. And it's always amazing when kids find that they can create a work, an animal, imaginary, color it, personalize it, and then they can actually push it onto the wall, the interactive wall that's just right in front of them. And if they email it to themselves, they not only get a copy, but they get an origami cutout, which they can then fold and take home as a craft. So these are things that we try to stay engaged with visitors. Outside the Singapore Gallery, we also have this thing called the social table. It's more affectionately called the giant iPad. And on this giant iPad, you see about 200 images, artworks that just float across These may be images you come across in the gallery. Some would be related images that we have from the collection that we just put up. And you don't really need to know about the artwork or the background of it, but we encourage visitors to just pick, about 8 to 10 works that speaks to them for different reasons, and they can create their own poster and they can email it to themselves. So these are all ways in which we try to extend, the experience of the visitor. We also then introduce Gallery Explorer. So this is an app that visitors can actually download onto their own phones, Android and iOS. And there are also kids tours that introduce and take them around different parts of the gallery through a child's perspective. So it's also narrated in a very theatrical manner. And I think in 2016, I think we all know about the Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan. So we are very proud to have hosted about 20 Japanese children from that area coming to Singapore to do art therapy. So this is also where the Keppel Center was hosted activities that really allowed them to, I suppose, convey and get over some of that traumatic experience that they had faced. So I think now we feel that family activities are quite important to sustain that. So on every weekend we do have different programs for families. We wanted to make sure that, if people are looking for things to do with their kids, there's always something to do at the National Gallery, at museums. And so we do have a range of programs, whether it's interactive tours, storytelling, or art workshops at the Keppel Center. And I mentioned about, the Light to Night Festival that we did last November, where we actually had big program around the inside interiors of the museum. We actually transformed one of the areas into a forestscape that complemented the art playscape as well. It was made entirely out of balloons by one of our balloon artists. There were also activities like music performances, both in and outside, an outdoor film screening, as well as, a facade projection. So we found that, interestingly, parents of all, parents, grandparents, and kids, all three generations came to the museum. They actually stayed out till pretty late because we extended hours till about 2 a.m. Many of them were still around at 12. So this is something that we feel going forward, increasingly we expect to see more and more of such intergenerational visitations to the gallery. And so what's coming up is something that we have not quite announced yet, but I'm just sharing with all of us in the room here today that we'll be having a children's biennale in May. So it's a 4-month exhibition from May all the way to 8th of October. And we will also have a partial revamp of the Keppel Center with 2 new activities in that space. The Biennale will feature about 9 interactive installations that are located in the public spaces around the gallery, and they're actually created by artists for young children. Here you see an image where it's a work it's an interactive piece that the children can go into. It almost feels like you're going into a white canvas, but there are pop-up, kind of furniture that resembles a home. And we're going to give kids a colored sticker that they can, over the course of their visit, totally obliterate the room and go crazy and cover all the furniture with these colored sticker dots. And that's a work that, it's not just a random fun activity that we came up with, but it's a work that's inspired by Yayoi Kusama, who's a very well-known Japanese artist, and we'll be having her exhibition as well at the same time. So this is actually a tie-up with that particular exhibition. So another thing that people can look forward to in the Children's Biennale is this interactive work by Team Lab. So we're going to feature a room which is filled with these inflated balls, and parents, young children, they can go in there and discover, the balls will change with color, and there's a soundscape that accompanies it. And you can't quite see, the pathway, but you can kind of feel your way through it. So it's this idea of full body engagement, multi-sensorial, that we're also introducing in the Children's Biennale. So there are a few more artworks, but I won't go into it. So this is considered a sneak preview, and we'll invite all of you, to join us when the Children's Biennale opens. So I think in conjunction with the Children's Biennale, I think visitors can also look forward to 2 weekends. We're having an outdoor festival in July, August. And we're going to do a facade projection trail on all the different buildings, largely the Singapore, the National Gallery, Victoria Theatre and Concert Hall, the Arts House, and ACM, Collectively, this forms the cluster of the Downtown Civic District. So I think that's something to look forward to. So I guess to conclude, I think ultimately our vision is really to create a museum where you don't really have to be a sort of a connoisseur, but really we encourage ideas and experience to be an exchange across generations between those who know and those who can bring new perspectives to it. Okay, so on that note, I'll end it here.
So thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon. I'm the Area Director of STB Oceania. So I am going to shorten the overall presentation today, but I think what we've heard today was about the kind of products that we have, the importance of the interactivity and engagement, but I also wanted to share a little bit about how then STB translates it and markets Singapore. So we do have that right to win, and we appeal to all of our partners like yourselves, going with today's theme, that if you have family-centric content for your attractions, for your hotels, for your restaurants, for anything at all, please do share that with us, because then that's when the regional offices like ourselves will take that, work with our agencies, and then find a way to present the information to still showcase Singapore in something still unexpected of what our travelers think of us. So this one is what we did recently as a follow-up to our 2016 family-centric IMC, which stands for our Integrated Marketing Campaigns. So what we have done instead is, after understanding what our Australian travel target audience is, created a campaign to showcase, oh, hang on, let me find this. Okay. We had created and commissioned research to say why Singapore was appealing and why there were certain reasons that we could still tie back Singapore as a family destination. What we did this year is to leverage neurotourism to say that if you want to know how you can feel all the different experiences across Singapore, if you want your children to be happy, fun, relaxed, interested, or excited, Singapore can offer that to you. So this is a video to explain to you what and how that concept came about, and it was actual research and statistics that we have, which we could then pitch to the media, because with that, it was a different take of what appeals. For example, children were found to have enjoyed going to Singapore's museums, and they also enjoyed eating our local food. So I will just play the video without further ado. So we wanted to showcase this example really because this is quite a different way of presenting information about Singapore. By commissioning research, it was a credible source of statistics and data that we collected, and it also took us away from the travel pages of the media publications, but also onwards to the mainstream media. So that was the best way for us to get more cut through across a very cluttered media landscape. I wish I had more time to show and share with you more information about what we have done in the past, but come and chat to me on the side. I suppose really the 3 key learnings I wanted to have everyone to take away today after today's session is that keeping abreast of the trends and identifying the next big thing, be it from who's on trend now, which influencer or which YouTube blogger is getting a lot of reach and engagement, that helps us know who to engage, to bring to Singapore, to present and let them experience Singapore so that they can speak up for us as our advocates. And that helps us get the cut through. And family-related proof points, they are everywhere. So from the hotels to restaurants to family attractions and even to museums with specific children's programming helps us as TV also to work together with you. So please keep that information coming. Or if you're planning something in the future also, do consider this. And lastly, we just want to say that Singapore has that right to win. There are some gaps, and we certainly want to work with you to bring more family visitors to Singapore. Thank you very much.